Well, it's my pleasure to welcome you here tonight. This is Conversations with Katie. It's a monthly free information session that I host. Topics depend on what you all are interested in talking about and what's happening in the world that we need to discuss or what kind of resources you need. And tonight, I'm really excited that we have Casey from Argus Farm Stop here with us. She's gonna talk with us about their model. But I wanted to give you a little bit of context and my impetus for inviting Casey here today. I was at the Up and Coming conference in Michigan this fall and attended a session on the first day of kind of exploring other options. Like how can we make this work for everyone? How can we make cooperative grocery stores work for everyone? Whether you're rural or urban, or you can raise money from your owners, or you can't, you're low income, you're low access. And there was there were three different panelists. Argus Farm Stop was one of the panelists, and I was enthralled with what they had to say during that conversation. And so enthralled that they offered a session on their model during the conference. I attended that session. And then after that, I found them at lunch or breakfast one day and I picked their brain some more. I would have talked to them even more if I had the time and energy at the conference. But I'm just really and truly inspired by the work that they're doing, especially in light of the fact that what we're seeing happening in the grocery co-op world is that co-ops are struggling to raise the amount of money you need to raise to open a cooperative grocery store. I have got a client right now that's got a $6 million project ahead of them. And it feels almost insurmountable in these times, especially, when people are, there's so much hesitation and uncertainty. So that it's expensive. And then there are our results aren't what we're seeing across the country is that these co-ops aren't as successful as we had projected that they would be. And often, like my home co-op, Green Top Grocery, which Susan is here from Green Top, they struggled to get their feet under them and get financially sound. And this model gives us an opportunity that's cheaper and faster, which is primarily the reason that attracted me to it. But the more I learn about it, the more I'm attracted to the foundation of how they exist and how they're built. And I'll let Casey fill you in on all of that. But Casey did an exceptional job at the conference. She's been overwhelmingly generous with her time in conversations with me and emails with me and agreeing to be here tonight. So I'm glad you're here, Casey, and I'll let you take it from here. I'll keep an eye on the chat. And Casey, you can tell us if you want questions in the chat or you want to interject questions. You tell us how you want to do that.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, first thing, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Some of you I recognize. I met quite a few co-op folks at Up and Coming. As Katie said, we were invited. Laura Matney is our general manager of Argus, and I went and spoke there. And so I made a lot of new connections in the co-op world. And so some of you have already seen some version of this presentation I'm going to give tonight. So I'm going to go through it. Like I'm going to try to be as thorough as I can, but I'm not going to spend a ton of time on the slides. I want to leave room at the end for conversation. So I think I'm going to ask you to pause. Like definitely, if you have a question, put it in the chat so you don't lose it. But then we can kind of answer some of those at the end and have a more interactive conversation, if that makes sense.
Perfect.
All right. So I'm going to go ahead and share my slides. All right, look good? Great. All right. So, yeah, as Katie mentioned, I am Casey Miller and I'm from Argus Farm Stop. We are in Ann Arbor, Michigan. I am the external training manager for Argus. So I sort of coordinate our program where we provide consulting and education around the model to folks that are curious or that people that decide to go down the road and actually open a farm stop. We provide support in that space. And then I also work to grow the spread of the model across the country and Canada at this point. So I'll get more into detail of what all that means and what a farm stop really is. I'm going to pretty quickly move through these first few slides, I want to kind of set the scene as to what farm stops came into being to solve a specific issue, and I want to set some scene of what the issues are we're trying to solve with the farm stop model, and then I'll get more specific into the model itself. So, um, why do we care about local food? I think a number of you probably do care about local food. You want to be on this call if you didn't. I went to the food shed session at FC at the Up and Coming conference. So I know that you all focus on local food too. There are a number of reasons, and it's personal for a lot of people, but if you have a local food, if you have a robust local food economy, you live in a thriving food community, and it just touches all these different factors of your life. You meet your farmers, you meet your neighbors at the farmers market, you know where your food is coming from, you're connected to climate and resiliency in a way that you're not if you just shop at your big box grocery store. So there are a lot of reasons for, why local food is, we see that the data is local food consumption is on the up. It really kind of spiked at the beginning of the pandemic and it has not come back down. So the demand is there and growing, and it seems to not be, there seems to not be an end to that growth right now. Oh, there we go. All right, so local foods at risk. These are stats from our county here in Michigan, Washtenaw County. This is kind of a national trend, though. Farms are closing, and once farmland is lost, it doesn't typically go back to farmland. So we're kind of at a critical time right now to really try to address this farm loss, to figure out how we can keep this land as farmland, how we can make farming a sustainable living for people, that they can do this as their primary job. They don't have to do this as their third or fourth job. They can have health care. Maybe they can go on vacation sometimes. We want people to be farmers and to be happy and successful as farmers. Farmers make very little money. Even if you are buying a locally farmed product at a big box grocery store, the average amount, the national average, the amount of that dollar sale that goes back to the farm is 15 cents on the dollar. And the other 85 cents is spent on marketing. It's all the people in the middle that are part of that supply chain. And so you see why it is hard for farms to write down to make money, why farms are closing, why children don't want to take on their parents' farms, why young people are not getting into farming. It's a tough way to make money right now. This graphic shows you all of those middle pieces in the supply chain. The average distance that food travels from field to plate in the United States is 1,500 miles. That holds up no matter where you are. And the food system, when you have these many people in the middle, the supply chain is so complex that it makes it incredibly vulnerable when there are things like climate disasters. COVID-19 really highlighted a lot of this. And as I said, COVID-19 was where we kind of saw a huge spike in the interest in local food consumption across the country, and that has stayed increased. Only less than 1% of food is directly produced or directly purchased by the consumer from the producer. So when you're talking about that small of a part of the market share is being directly produced, there's a tremendous opportunity there to grow that and have significant impact, even with a small increase. When you're talking about less than 1%, that small increase can have a tremendous impact. And of course, when you're buying directly from the producer, it has tremendous impact on that farmer. We can kind of flip that inverted, that previous slide with the dollar where we're only making 15 cents on the dollar. You can really flip that pretty easily. And so kind of understanding that, the food system, our food system is broken, our food supply chains in the United States are broken. But we think about the main channels where you might encounter local food or farmers markets and grocery stores. If you think about the positive aspects of a farmers markets, the farmers are selling directly to consumers, so they're getting most of that sale. So it's great economics for the farmer. The food at the farmers market is generally local and it's in season and it's fresh. Not all farmers markets are producer-only markets. There are some wholesale farmers markets as well. We have a very big one here in Detroit. They have amazing locally produced or grown products too, but they also sell pineapples. So not all farmers markets are created equal, but many farmers markets are focused on local food. You have an authentic chance to meet your farmer and have a real conversation with the person that's producing the food that you're putting on your plate. There are educational opportunities. You might go to the farmer's market and see a vegetable you've never seen before, and then you can talk to the person that grew it, and they're going to give you recommendations on what to do with it, how to cook it, how to prepare it. And you also might go to the farmer's market looking for a specific thing and you find out that it's not there because we had a late frost and so it's a couple weeks behind, or a lot of rain, or what have you. So you'll kind of you develop this connection with your local community, your local farmers. So farmers markets are great in many, many ways. Grocery stores also have a lot of attributes that make them a really attractive place to shop for consumers. Um, they have really high quality refrigeration and display. Even though that produce was maybe picked 2 weeks ago, it looks fresh because it's been treated in a very high quality way in the store. It's in a produce deck with nice lighting. It's getting misted every 10 minutes. And grocery stores are convenient. They're open year round. They're open every day. Sometimes they're open 24 hours a day. Um, we don't have data on this per se, but just based on our experience and from talking to other farm stops and other farmers markets folks, initially, I think at one point we thought that maybe for every person that goes to the farmer's market, maybe there's 20 that didn't go because they had something else that came up that prevented them from going to the farmer's market. Um, we think it's probably a lot higher than that. We probably think for us, even here in Ann Arbor, in our community, it's probably more like 60 or 70 if you look at foot traffic through Farm Stop versus at the farmer's market here in Ann Arbor. So for every, it's hard to get to the farmer's market one day a week. That might be the day that you got little league practice, or you're sick, or it's raining, or you just don't feel like going that day. And then that means you don't have a chance to buy local food again until the next week. So if we take the best aspects of a farmer's market and the best aspects of grocery stores and we combine them, that's the goal of what a farm stop may be. So we've got convenience. Farm stops are open year round. We're open daily. We're selling local products, and we're selling local products at a margin that is sustainable for local farms. So some of the things that we consider core aspects of what is a farm stop. I will pause briefly to give you a kind of an overview. I'm talking from Argus Farm Stop. We're in Ann Arbor, Michigan, as I mentioned. We, I think, are the second farm stop to ever open. The first one is in Worcester, Ohio. We now know of about 25 that are around the country, and every farm stop is different. But there are some core aspects that we all share that we've kind of identified as like what actually makes a farm stop a farm stop. In terms of scale and the way it looks inside, and the culture and what types of food we're selling. If you've seen one farm stop, you've seen one farm stop. So we're all very different, but there are some core aspects that make us that link us to make us what we are. So one is a brick and mortar store. We try to make ourselves look as much like a traditional grocery store as you possibly can, but we only sell local food. This picture is taken, I think, in April, so kind of our lowest point in the season, maybe March, actually, I think, in the lowest point in the season. So we have the least amount of food in our store in this picture that we will ever have, but we still try to do our best to make it look robust. And it is exclusively local. We have a single checkout line for anyone who purchasing, even though they're purchasing from multiple farms. So if you go to a farmer's market, you have individual transactions with each vendor that you're interacting with. At a farm stop, we have one point of sale system, and all purchases go through that point of sale system. And if you are buying from 10 different farms, you're still making one transaction. And then most of the farms selling at Argus continue to sell through farmers markets. So we are not a replacement for other market outlets for farms. We are an additional market outlet for other farms. So the core aspect, this is kind of the crux of what makes a farm stop different from other retailers that may be selling exclusively local food. We sell our food on consignment. So the producer retains ownership. When they bring it in the door, they do their delivery, they drop it off. We do not at that time write them a check. They don't give us an invoice to pay later. They drop off the food, they leave. We become at that point stewards of their food, and we work very hard to maintain the trust and the respect necessary to do that well. So we treat the produce just as though we had grown it ourselves, and then we sell it. Once it's sold, then that capture of the sale through the point of sale system, that is what drives the payout later to the producer. And so they only get paid for things that sell. They don't get paid for everything that comes in the door that they deliver. And so that it maintains that direct and consumer farmer selling direct to consumer link that we feel is very important for making sure the farmer is getting the most margin that they can. The farms set their prices. We don't haggle with them on prices. If they say, I'm going to sell this bunch of kale for $4, then we put it up for $4, and we do not ask them to change that price. The farmers know what they need to get for their own products, and we trust their wisdom in that. The math is pretty transparent. We have signs all over the place, and we talk to everybody that will listen to us about why things are priced and why our store looks a little bit different than a traditional grocery store. Our consignment split is 70-30. So anybody selling on consignment in our store gets the same consignment split. So for that dollar, if you think back to that slide where farmers are getting 15 cents to the dollar, at a farm stop, they're getting 70 cents to the dollar. That 30% margin, then we retain to cover our overhead. This whole thing works through mutual trust, and that is key to our success. The farmers trust that we are going to treat their products with respect and kindness and do our best to sell it. And we trust that our farmers are going to bring us the best things that they can and keep us stocked with their food. We are ultra local. The vast majority of things in our store are grown within our county. We have other things that are sourced across Michigan, especially with value add products, we'll source a little bit farther. But thinking right now of turkey season, we have local turkey producers that are selling fresh turkeys for Thanksgiving, but we don't have a year-round turkey producer that's selling frozen turkey. But that's something we want to carry. So we have a turkey farm about 3 hours away from us up in mid-Michigan. That's whose frozen turkey we carry year-round. But if somebody else were to start selling or producing frozen turkey year-round and are closer to us, we would move to the closer producer. So we'll source as far as we need to, but we don't generally source outside of Michigan for anything. And the model, because it is a consignment model, the farmers aren't bringing too much. They don't want to waste anything. We are very good about guessing and working with the farmers on how much for them to bring. I'll touch on that more in a moment. We have very little food waste. And we've never, in 11 years of operation, we've never had a farmer leave because they felt that we were mishandling their products. So the third point to make about what a farm stop is or what it is not is that all farm stops are mission directed to grow local food economies. We may use different language to say that, but at the core, we're all kind of saying the same thing in our missions. And our core reason for existence is to grow our local food economies and support our small to mid-sized farms. Argus is organized as an L3C. It's an LLC that has a mission and articles of formation. About a dozen states or so have L3Cs. Other farm stops in states that don't have L3C may be operating as an LLC. But you are not tied to a specific entity as a farm stop. So there are farm stops that are cooperatives, and there are farm stops that are nonprofits. And the model can work in any sort of entity. Any of those entities are fine, as long as you are centering that mission of growing your local food economy. So I do want to highlight, since I'm talking about a co-op audience, I'm going to highlight a few co-op farm stops. So one is Bloomington Farm Stop Collective in Bloomington, Indiana. They started their process in 2020. They opened in 2021. They were formed as a farmer-owned cooperative. They were in a trade with pandemic. There were some things going on politically in their farmers market. A group of farmers they were looking for something different. The farmers market was shut down. They found out about Argus. They came and chatted with us and came and trained with us. And then, I don't know, I forget the exact timing, but less than a year later, they opened in August of 2021 as a farmer-owned cooperative. And they started, I think, with 29. It says here 29 farmers. I think now it says 53. I actually think they're up to 57 farmers now, farmer owners. And they are thriving. It's a really great place. It's a really nice farm stop. If you're ever in Bloomington, please check them out. The first the first farm stop that we know of that ever existed was at Local Roots. This is in Worcester, Ohio, and they are formed as a co-op. So it started, I believe, in 2007, and they also started as a farmer-owned co-op. And then a few years in, they decided to transition to a community-owned co-op. So they're still a co-op, but they transitioned from farmer-owned to community-owned. The farmers are still members, but they brought in their membership base. And they're still in operation, and they're probably, I think, in terms of sales, the second, Argus has the most sales of any farm stop that I'm aware of. I think Local Roots is probably right behind us, and our communities are very different. Argus is in Ann Arbor. We're a community of about 140,000. We're relatively affluent. We've got a huge college, very educated consumer base that already wants to buy local food. Local Roots is in Worcester, Ohio. Worcester has a population of about 25,000. It is very rural. They're surrounded by farmland. They are right next to the most densely populated Amish community in the country. They do have a small liberal arts college in town of like 1,500 students. They are technically a college town too. But their average income is much lower than ours. It's definitely more of a working class community. But they've been in business since like I said, I think it's 2007, I believe is when they opened. And then a third co-op Farm Stop, just to highlight, they're in the process of opening. So Kennett Community Grocer in Kennett Square, Pennsylvania. They found out about Farm Stops in early spring of this year, or yeah, March, April, I think. When they found out about Farm Stops, they were already 8 years in to their opening process. They had 400 members already. They knew they wanted to focus on local food, but they're having a really hard time moving forward. They didn't have a space. They were kind of at a stagnant place. They found out about Farm Stops. Obviously their board came, the board decided to move forward with that model. It made sense for them. I think when I presented this slide at the Up and Coming conference back in September, they were just about to sign their lease. They have since signed a lease. They are in their build out phase. They were very nervous about communicating back to their members to say, okay, we're 8 years in and we told you we're going to do this one thing and now we're pivoting to this other thing. And then they held their member meeting and they communicated that they were pivoting to a farm stop. Their members essentially said, like, I thought that's what we were doing anyway. Like, we just want a place to buy local food. Let's just do that. And so their feedback from the members have been very positive. They less than a month ago, I think, held a farmer engagement meeting where they're starting to engage with their farmers and really try to convince the farmers to sign under a consignment model. That's not always easy. And that's going well as well. So they're now moving forward. Again, they're in their build-out phase. They're posting a store manager position. I think their goal is to have that posted by November 30th. And then their target opening is spring of 2026. So I really look forward to seeing how that moves forward. And I love their little logo. They're in the mushroom belt of America is Eastern Pennsylvania. So I like their logo there. All right. So how this works for kind of through these three different constituencies. For farms and producers, if they want to sell through Argus, we have an application. It's on our website. It's an application process. We don't accept every producer that applies with us. We work really hard to curate our product mix. We try not to have more than 3 producers of any one item, but we also try to have the most robust product mix that we can. We really work hard to make sure that we're offering enough of a robust product mix that even though we're purely local and highly seasonal, of course, consumers come to us as part of their weekly shopping habit. So the goal is that they come to us, they buy everything from us that they possibly can, and then they go to their other grocery store to buy their bananas and their aluminum foil or what have you. So we don't say yes to every producer. We may say yes on some items that they may grow that are filling a hole in our product mix. And then we may say no on other things where we already have a deep bench. And then we have a waiting list at this point for many of our products. Communication with farms is paramount to the success in this type of model. It is definitely a far more labor-intensive model than a traditional grocery store. And I appreciate what Katie said about, I think we're seeing a lot of enthusiasm from co-ops because I think a big part of it is we are able to open faster for far less money and have a big impact. However, I do want to stress it's not easy. It is a labor-intensive model. And so I just always want to put that out there so people don't think that we're not opening a Sysco catalog or a UNFI catalog or whatever and ordering. It's a lot of it's direct conversations with our farmers. We have 300 producers, I think over 300 producers, I think now that sell through us. Not all of them are in the store all the time. Some of them are highly seasonal. We have somebody right now who only sells cranberries, so we only see him once a year. But all of those producers usually have around 200, maybe a little over 200 most of the year. And that means we are communicating with 200 producers every week. And so we have systems in place to make that work smoothly. We don't find it onerous per se, and we make sure we have our systems make sure that we aren't missing anybody. But it does require intention and commitment on an ongoing basis. And so you've got to have somebody in your staff that's willing to form those relationships and maintain them. And they're a joy. Personally, I love talking to the farmers. When farmers deliver, they can deliver anytime that suits them. Again, we're here to serve farmers, so we don't have set delivery hours. If we're open, they can deliver. Most farmers deliver on some sort of, general kind of know when to expect most of them, but they can come anytime we're open. When they come, we invite them in. We give them free coffee. We introduce them to the shoppers. We try to form those connections to make them authentic and have that feeling like you're at a farmer's market. And then the producers get paid from us every 2 weeks. So again, we're not paying off of an invoice. We're not writing them a check when they drop off. We track our sales through our point of sale system. And then every other week, every 2 weeks, they get a check from us that includes also a very in-depth sales report that shows exactly by line item, exactly what they sold, the price. We have multiple locations. I'll get to that in a moment. So like the different locations, it shows you which store sold which products. So they get that reporting. I think that's a big draw for many farms. If you're a farmer selling at a farmer's market, you don't really get data. You leave the day and you have your pockets are stuffed full of money, but you really don't know what you sold. If you're selling through a farmer's market or through a farm stop, excuse me, you get such a great sales report. You can then use that to forecast for the next year, for example. Our customers are amazing. It's not an easy place to shop. It's not the cheapest place to shop. So customers are shopping there because they care about the mission. They care about shopping local. For the most part, we do definitely have customers that come in and they don't care what farm they're buying from. They just know that our carrots taste better than the carrots they're buying at Kroger. So our customers come for different reasons, but many of them come for that connection to the farmer. And then with staff, we try to create a culture that's a really welcoming, rewarding place to work. We are not the store that pays the most. There are any number of places in Ann Arbor where you could work and make more money doing similar work. But if you want to work in local food, there are very few places where you can work in local food year round, particularly in this part of the country. So we look for staff that are looking for that are interested in food systems, that are looking for work in that space, and that are really aligned with our mission. And we have very low turnover for our retail space. I think all of our managers have been at Argus for 8 or more years. If you had told me in 2014 I would still be working here, I would not. I said, no way, but here I am. So we started in 2014. That photo on the left is our first store. That's an old gas station that was converted into the farm stop. So it's from a 1930s gas station. I'm sure you've seen this building in towns around you. It's kind of all over the country. When you walk in that front door there's a counter. That is our cafe. We do have a full cafe operation that operates at a higher margin than the market. So that higher margin sales through the cafe helps subsidize the market operation. So if you were to walk through that front door, we're the counter where you would have previously paid your mechanic. That is where the coffee bar is. You walk through the door into the left into the market space. That's the garage area where your car would have been worked on. That's where the market is. The entire thing is about 2,500 square feet, including some outdoor seating space that we added on. And yeah, so that's our original place. We opened a second location in 2017. I want to be clear, not because the first location was not successful. It was totally fine on its own. Continues to be completely successful and fine. We opened a second location because our consumers demanded it. They wanted it in another location on the other side of town. We had some staff members that were interested in pursuing opening a second store, so we leaned into it. And then in 2020, we started doing subscription produce boxes and online groceries. We had not previously really been doing either of those things at any real scale. And we started doing delivery because of the pandemic. And so those programs have grown. The subscriptions have grown tremendously. The online grocery sales are now minimal because people are shopping in person again. But the subscriptions have continued to grow since 2020. So when we started doing the online subscriptions, and this 2017 store was shut down because of the pandemic. So we used that space to pack subscriptions. And then in 2021, two doors down from this 2017 space, another space opened up that we thought that would be a perfect market. So our neighbors wanted, our neighborhood wanted the store back. They wanted us to reopen it. We needed space to build a subscription program. So we now operate, the original store is just as it always has been, the market and cafe in one space. The 2017 building here is now just a cafe and community event space. And then two doors down, the 2022 space is the market. And so it's still the market and cafe. There just happen to be two doors apart. So we opened in 2014. We only had 40 producers when we opened. And as I said, we have over 300 now. We've grown year over year. These numbers are all three locations combined. So we've had I think we're at 7.4 right now as of 2025 sales across the three locations. In 2024, our top 75 farms received over $44,000. Our top, I think 7 or 8 received over $100,000. And those are, again, our direct consignment payouts. They are getting 70% of that sale. That's what's driving those payouts. The number that we're very proud of, and the thing we always try to center is that third bullet point. That is how much we have paid out to local farms and food producers since 2014. So we're very proud of that number. So farm stops can extend a seasonality. People always say, what do you do in the winter in Michigan? Our store is stocked fully year round. When farmers are very creative and very capable, and if they have a place to sell year round, they will grow year round. The green on this chart represents the typical farmers market season. The yellow is what farmers can grow if they have a place to sell it. So when you have a farm stop that's open year round and a reliable place to sell, they will grow year round. And we have definitely seen that to be true. Over a third of our produce sales take place from January to May. And January to May is a time of year when typically farmers markets don't exist. So if a farm stop is not there year round, those are just sales that the farmers wouldn't have those sales at all. There's no other secondary outlet. Our county is growing. We're the #1 county in the state for farms that grow vegetables. There were 42 new farms only in our county that opened from 2012 to 2022, which is incredible and very much not the trend nationally. I'm not suggesting at all that Argus is solely responsible for this, but we are definitely a part of it. We have found that when you have a place if you have a strong farmers market can be a base for this. If you have a place where you have consumers that are willing to grow or to purchase local food, the more outlets you're able to offer consumers to purchase local food, the more local food that will be purchased. So you think back to that, one of those earlier slides where only 0.7% of food is being sold directly to consumers. The more you grow that, the impact is really tremendous. To say that 42 farms have opened in the last 10 years in our county is amazing to me. Something we didn't anticipate when we opened was how much of a community space and a third place we've become. As I said, we had to build on extra seating. This bottom right picture is the greenhouse we built out of that original gas station just to have seating space. But it creates a really amazing place. People want to come shop, they want to work there, they want to hang out, and the farmers enjoy coming to our spaces as well. A note on food access. The farm style model is not necessarily the best model. If your primary goal is food access, this may not be the right model, at least not initially. When you're operating on consignment and we are only keeping 30% of the sales to cover our overhead, that's already an incredibly tight squeeze. We can't cover lower prices for folks that need lower prices. We're not going to ask the farmers to cut their prices because often the farmers are the folks that are food insecure, that are on food assistance programming. So there's not really a place in the farm stop model to take money out to support to support food access. However, we are really good at getting local food from farmers and putting it in a place where people can buy it. So what we have found to be successful is partnering with outside organizations that have funds to fund food access programming. We are very capable at doing that. And so we did not do that initially. We did take EBT cards kind of within the first few months. As soon as we had the reporting necessary to set that up, we started taking EBT cards right away. But we didn't kind of grow our food access programming until probably like year 5 or 6, because we just didn't have the bandwidth. We were just trying to do our core mission of growing the local food economy. As our farmers got stronger and as we got stronger as an organization, then we were able to lean more heavily into food access programming. As I said, the model's gaining momentum. There are 24 currently. We have a 25th one opening in about 2 weeks in Omaha. So about 25 farm stops open around the country. We started hosting in 2024 a national farm stop conference. We've hosted it twice. We've got a third one coming up in February of 2026. That's here in Ann Arbor. That farmstops.net and that red box is the conference website. We had last year 210-ish people, I think, from 28 different states. So there's tremendous interest out there. This is the current map of open farm stops. I know Katie's going to send these slides out tomorrow, so take a look if there's one in your area, or if you're going on a road trip somewhere, try to check one of these folks out. As I said, if you've seen one farm stop, you've seen one farm stop. So I'm showing you pictures and telling you the Argus story. That's not the same story that all of these folks would tell, but definitely check out a farm stop if you're ever near one. So what do you need to start this? Ideally, a community that already has a robust farmers market is ideal. That tells us that, one, you have a robust enough food shed to supply a thriving farmers market, and you have consumers that are buying local food. So those kind of bare minimum. You need a farmers market. It can be rural or urban. It could be affluent or lower income. The farm stops, like the map I just showed you, 70% of of the 25 are in a USDA rural community. So it doesn't have to be suburban like Ann Arbor is. I mean, it might mean the scale is different, and that's totally fine, but you can have a successful farm stop in any number of type of communities. So the only place we have rural and urban here, there aren't actually any farm stops in a purely urban setting yet. We're working with some folks in Chicago, we'll see, but as of now, there are not any truly urban farm stops. But certainly community wealth fluctuates greatly amongst the communities that have farm stops. So I think that's less of a barrier than some people might think. You need a really strong leadership team. One person with a ton of passion cannot do this. You need someone, again, who's going to lean into all those farmer relationships. You need someone who's going to be comfortable taking on the accounting of consignment payouts. And you need people that are, maybe somebody with retail experience. The group of us that started Argus, none of us had grocery experience. Some of us had retail experience, but nobody had grocery experience. So you need a leadership team. You need to kind of identify the different aspects of skill set that you need, and then have a team that can fill all those needs. The stores are small, and I think that leads to their success. It can be too small. I think there was one open to Detroit, and it was about 1,000 square feet, and they just weren't, even though they were busy, they just didn't have enough space to sell enough stuff to stay open. But I wouldn't go too big either. I think 4,000 square feet is probably plenty. You don't want to, especially in the winter in your off season, you don't want your store to look empty or people aren't going to want to shop with you. They're relatively affordable. So we opened our most recent location for $350,000. That was in 2022. We've been hearing from some folks that are opening now that it's a little more, probably closer to 400. Refrigeration costs specifically have gone up astronomically. There are tariffs on refrigeration units right now. So whether the tariffs prove to be permanent or if the tariffs go away, but the prices stay increased, we don't know. But it's probably closer to 400 probably to open one of these if you're opening it at that square footage. And so if you want to do this, we do consulting. So the first box there on the left, the public courses, I essentially just gave you the Welcome to Argus Farm Stops webinar. We do hold that the last Tuesday of every month. Our founders, Bill and Kathy, usually put that on. You're welcome to register through our website, but it's essentially the same slide deck I just went through. We do a 3-day class, how to start a farm stop. That goes into more detail on all the different things. If financial forecasting, how do you actually financially forecast for this type of, consignment model retail space? How do you build out? How do you do your site selection? How do you make your staffing plan? How do you do all of that farmer communication? How do you do consignment payouts? That all of those things are covered in that How to Start a Farm Stop course. In conjunction with the conference each year, we've been doing a Farm Stop School. That's kind of a hands-on in-person class at Argus where we talk about our daily operations. So sort of how do we label and track things through the store so they don't get lost. Again, everything has to be tied to that consent to that farmer identity so that gets paid out correctly through the consignment model. How do we merchandise? All those things. That's the Farm Stop School. And then periodically we hold a class on our online operations specifically. So our different subscription models or subscription programs that we have. We do private consulting. Generally, we ask people to go through the How to Start a Farm Stop course first, just because you feel like that gives you a good foundation. And then if you decide to actually do this and you are actually building out, or you're actually, doing your staffing plan or what have you, then that's kind of where the private consulting can be more useful. And I will also just mention, I'm always happy to give you a tour. If you're ever in Ann Arbor, please let me know. I'm happy to give you a tour. I love doing them. And then we also host in-person shadowing at Argus. And also we can do sites to your site as well. The shadowing is really helpful because if you can actually spend a few days working alongside our staff and seeing how it actually works on a day-to-day basis, that can be really, really helpful. So the takeaways where we get into questions is just, again, we have this issue where our food system is fully broken. We need to do something radical and think outside of the box to address that issue. And that's where the Farm Stop model has proven to be successful in a variety of different communities around the country. All right, so I know that was a lot. I went through it quickly. I said some wild things about consignment and not purchasing inventory and all these things. So I'm totally happy to answer questions.
We do have a couple questions in the chat. But before we get to those questions, Casey, in I've seen a version of these slides a few times now, and in a past iteration, I remember there being a focus historically and structurally with Argus on the foundational support of the farmer and how you put that at the base of what you're doing. Can you talk about that a little bit more? And then I'll pull up the chat and we'll get to those questions.
Yeah, I'm happy to. So I think the point I think what you're alluding to is that mission, that to grow our local food economy, to support our small farmers, that is why we exist. And that drives every decision that we make. So, we don't have a board. We're not a co-op. We don't have a board or anybody that we have to run decisions through. So we make decisions pretty quickly when we do have a decision to make. But the first thing we always ask ourselves is it in mission? Is this thing that somebody wants us to do, is it serving our small farmers? Is it serving our local food economy? Is that if the answer is no, then the answer is just no. Even if somebody wants to do the thing, even if it sounds like a fun thing, if the answer is no, it doesn't grow our local food economy, then it's not in mission and we're not going to do it.
So in the chat, we've got a couple questions from Lori. One you have covered for us in costs to start the project, but can you talk to us about where that funding comes from in the farm stops that are open?
Yeah, so these have proven to be pretty fundable. So Argus initially was started with the two owners that started it just used their own funds for the most part to purchase or to start the business. Other farm stops, we found that there's a lot of success getting grants to start these. And you don't have to be a nonprofit or a co-op to get a grant either. We've seen LLCs or L3Cs starting farm stops and getting USDA grants. Particularly if you're in a USDA rural location, there's more, USDA funding access to grow rural food initiatives. So we've definitely seen that. When we opened our third location, which again was just in 2022, we did some internal funding ourselves. We did some crowdsourcing. And then we did a loan through Fair Food Fund, which is part of the Fair Food Network. They're also a very friendly loaner, and they gave us very favorable terms on a loan.
I have a follow-up question with that.
Yeah.
Is it easier to get some of those grants as a farm stop versus a food co-op?
I don't know. I mean, I frankly, I don't have, I'm a new person in the co-op space, so I don't know. But I can tell you just from the farm stop perspective, I think the reason that we are finding that it's fundable is because it's the mission is centered. You're doing mission work to support small farms. And so if you can say, I'm going to open a market and I'm forecasting that I'm going to sell $1 million of local food in my community in my first year, they're going to, they're willing to give
The
you money.
impact. Mhm.
It has
Yeah,
a tremendous impact.
yeah.
And
From the
maybe it
co-op,
makes, oh, I
sorry,
was gonna
go
say,
ahead,
maybe
Lori.
it makes a difference between being a nonprofit versus for-profit as well.
Yeah, so there are some nonprofit co-ops that are, or I'm sorry, nonprofit farm stops that are opening that maybe are getting more grants for some of the equipment costs and things and some of the like the build out expenses. But yeah, I've definitely seen a number of LLC farm stops open up with using primarily grant funding. Maybe not exclusively grant funding, but primarily grant funding.
Okay.
And because I'm so interested in this model, I reached out to the folks at Kennett that were highlighted in the slides. They're the co-op that's transitioning from the standard model to the Argus model, and they are just kicking off their capital campaign to raise funds from owners. So Lori, they're selling preferred shares in their community as well to fund some of their costs. Um,
Yeah, I was gonna say, this could be such a beautiful meld because,
Mhm.
when we raised the money from the community, right? And we were selling ownerships at $200 and it's a lifetime membership, right? You just pay it one time. I could actually see communities coming together and the people who are planning to shop there to buy some minimal ownership like that at say $200 for life, along with the farmers, paying. It could be a way. I mean, it sounds like a drop in the bucket. There's not, compared to what most of us had to raise for the co-ops, it's
Yeah.
amazing. That's a wonderful story.
I mean, the big reason it's so cheap, quote unquote, to start one of these is because we're not purchasing inventory to start. Our cost of goods sold when we start is not
Right.
zero. We do have goods we do have goods to purchase, but like it's so much less. We're not purchasing inventory.
Right, farmers are bringing all of that, so.
I also think that, sorry, I'm from Shared Harvest, and we're also looking at that transition to maybe go to Farm Stop from the traditional co-op. We know Food Shed. I shopped there yesterday. But I think our initial thought process was when we started 13, 14 years ago, was at that time, nobody would talk to us. Unify and all the big companies wouldn't even talk to you. So our initial thought was really a farm stop idea. We had all the farmers in our first meetings. We didn't get the business model the same, but we were going to just kind of build our own shelves and do this. But then we got sort of into the co-op world where they said we had to have all this fancy equipment. So we're going back to plugins. We're going to plug in we're not going to have them built in. We're going to plug in our freezer. We're going to plug in our refrigerator. At least that's how we're trying to go. I think that cost is what's the big difference. When you have to raise 1.5 million to make your space look fancy dancy versus a farm store.
Yeah.
I think that's the bigger thing.
Yeah,
than the,
I do think like I totally agree with you. I hear what you say or what you're saying, but I will also say we have a 14-foot produce deck in our stores that have a built-in misting system, and it's not, it is built in. But everything else is so minimal and like the scale is so much smaller. Again, they're a smaller store, so there's just so much less infrastructure that you need. And because
Right.
your farmers are local, they're delivering at least once a week. Some of them come 2 times a week to deliver. So there's all this turnover. So you don't need like a huge space to really to move a lot of volume of food.
And the other thing I'll mention real quick, Martin, I know you've got a question too, and there's a couple more in the chat. Is that now I lost my train of thought. Oh, that we're like, I was talking with Kim as we were getting started here, that we're competing, we're creating these grocery stores, which of no fault to the model that has served the cooperative industry for decades and centuries probably. But we've transitioned to a time in our economy where we're not competing with other mom and pop grocery stores. We're competing with billionaires and huge big box industries. And the fact of the matter is we can't continue at that level, I don't think. And this is a way for us to do the work that we want to do where we're not competing with them. We are doing something they are not doing. People are coming to us for something else. And so I think that is one of the most refreshing things about the model. Martin, go ahead.
Yeah, obviously, Carol and I are both from Shared Harvest. Thank you again for this wonderful presentation. You really are talking to the choir. We really are convinced, the two of us, but unfortunately, we have others that are not. And a simple question to you: in order for us to have more, let's say, more basic information that really allows us to really rattle the cage a little bit and to really get going on this a bit more aggressively. I know you have that model of first doing this general education, but could we, because of our special challenge that we have, could we also buy consulting from you purely for generating, let's say, some level of documentation that would really allow us to convince other people on our board that this is just really an alternative that really would work for us? Is this something that we could do?
Yeah,
Because it's really,
I think
Yeah, I think a performa is what we're
looking for a performer. Yeah. We have I can't remember if I sent this to you or not, Carol and Martin, I'm sorry. We do have a performer template that you can use. And I think too, I don't know if your board, I mean, we could also be open to presenting directly to your board if you think that would be helpful. Like, I don't know. Yeah, I don't want to like close this conversation. I don't want to like take up everyone's time with it, but I don't want to.
no, we don't.
No, I definitely, yeah, I totally hear what you're saying. I understand it's a wild concept and not everybody's going to just take your word for it.
That's what.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to. And
Okay, good.
maybe the three of us can get on a call after Thanksgiving and talk about it.
Perfect.
Make a
Let's do
plan.
that. Let's do that.
Let's do that.
Yeah, next week is the busiest time
No.
at Farm
That's
Stops
good.
this year.
After Thanksgiving is perfect. Thank you.
Yeah.
Sue has a couple questions in the chat about leftover products.
Yeah.
Casey, what happens with that? And then she's also asking about the kinds of products like jams, jellies, honey, that kind of thing.
No, those are good questions. So when we cull produce, so again, if you go into like Kroger, in theory, if you go into like a big box store, they're very good at culling their produce. So like you never see wilted lettuce, they just pull it immediately. We do that too. Because we're that stewards of the farmers, we know that a farmer worked really hard to grow this head of lettuce or whatever, and we don't want this one that's slightly wilted out there when we know we have a fresh delivery in the back that looks perfect. So we cull very, very aggressively. The farmers know that we do that. When we onboard a new producer, we say, what do you want us to do with the stuff that we cull that's not quite sellable or that doesn't sell? And I can't think of any exceptions. I think 100% of our produce farmers just have us, either if a staff member wants it, they can take it, or we donate it to a food pantry. So we have a food pantry here in town that comes to our store once a week with their box truck and loads up. But we have very little, we're very good at working with the farmers to know how much we're going to sell in any given week. So we have very little food waste. Again, I wish I could I think about this every time I do this presentation. I wish I could tell you like a volume of like food that comes in our door every week. But like when the food pantry truck comes, it's a box of maybe a 5-foot high stack of boxes of food that we're wasting, but we're sending to the food pantry. So we have very little food waste. And then in terms of product, kind of value added, we do. It's a totally a full service store to the extent that anything our local food shed can produce, we will sell it. So it's produce and meat and dairy and eggs and all those things. But it's also jams, honey, maple syrup, grains, cereals. And then we sell things that are not on consignment. So we also work with a Michigan wholesaler to sell, it's still Michigan products, they're still local products, but we sell chips and I don't know, pretzels and kombucha and like all value added things that, we would try to create that product mix that is compelling enough for a customer to come to us every week as part of their routine.
The question in the chat exists too about comparing the farm stop model to the co-op model. You might not know the answer to this. I don't know the answer to this, but maybe some of our open co-ops could help us with this question is how pay to the farmer compares.
So it's a big issue for us right now. That's why this is so incredibly interesting. Because the farmers, see, if it was this model and the farmers would bring the produce in and they would set the price at what they want, right? So you must then mark that up 30%.
No.
No, the sale,
So
they
they
said the
don't,
sale.
when they mark the price, they only get 70% of that price.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay, because the farmers are like, when they can go to the farmer's market, there's this, it's almost like a competition for them right now, for us to be there. They don't want to come in and sell to us at 70% of what they could get at the farmer's market.
Mm.
They want to continue to go to the farmer's market. A lot of the farms that go to our farmer's market are small. And so they say, we don't grow more than that. We can sell everything that we have. And so it's kind of a deal. We had great relationships with the farmers before we opened. But then we opened the store and we're open, every day, all day. And it's been tougher to get. I mean, we have quite a few local farms, but it's not as easy as, that sounds like that would be if it was all local and all local producers. I don't know.
Yeah, some of our farms, so they set the price and they're getting 70% of that price. The price they tell us is what the customer is going to pay. And some farms, just through talking with them over the years, I know that some farms will then increase their price at Argus 30% over what they're selling at the farmer's market, because they're making up for that cut, that loss. They still want 100% of the sale, which is, again, we're not going to haggle with them. That's fine. Other farms choose not to do that because it's so easy. If they come into Ann Arbor and they go to the farmer's market on Saturday and they have excess, they just bring it to us to sell the excess. So they see us as just this additional channel to sell things. And so some of them see it that way, where they're like, well, no, this is just extra for me. So I don't need to offset it, because if I take this home, I'm not going to sell it at all. But if I take it to Argus, they might sell it. So I don't need to make up for that extra 30%. And I will say our consumers also understand that, the economics are different between the farmer's market and the farm stop. And so even if a consumer knows that they can get it for 20 cents less at the farmer's market, maybe they just can't go. They're happy to come into Argus on a Tuesday when they can shop and pay that extra whatever to get the thing that they want. Yeah.
I'm going to piggyback on that. And one observation I have of our place is that most of you know Jacqueline Hanna and FCI. She made a comment on a call the other day that we have a nice suburban NCG store that's beautiful, like we've talked about. We spent the money, we have the nice refrigerators, and basically what we have is a mini Whole Foods or a Sprout store with cute signs. And she went on to say that co-ops like ours, and probably Green Top and would be an example of this in Bloomington, Illinois, we have trouble connecting to our community with that true community identity. And what I see you've built at Argus is like that total community connection, that authentic community connection. And then you've gone out and you've hired employees somehow. I'm not sure how you did this. Maybe in Ann Arbor, it's easier because you've got that young crowd there that's progressive, and they get it. And we have trouble. We have a great staff, but we have trouble finding people that understand or buy into our mission to work at our store. So, forming those authentic, deep relations with the farmers that you have, it's been a real struggle for us. And And then you top it off with this beautiful store that, looks kind of like all the other stores in town. It's like we just have higher prices in the eyes of the consumer because we don't have that. I've always called it funkiness. And even before we opened, I said, I want our store to have some funkiness because you go in co-ops around the country and they're funky, most of them, a lot of them. And you're not at Walmart, so
Mhm.
we lack that funkiness. And I think I've been to your store in Ann Arbor, one of them, and it's a little bit funky as I recall. And
It's very funky.
it's, I think you need funkiness to differentiate yourself in the market. And
Yeah.
Agreed.
I mean, I
Agreed.
don't have an easy answer to that. And maybe there isn't an answer, but like we think very, very, very hard about our culture. And our culture, people say, like, in fact, our number one feedback from customers is not like, you guys have the best food. It's that you guys are the nicest people and I have so much fun shopping at Argus. And that is something we put effort into every day. That does not happen on its own. We have like really in-depth customer service training that everyone goes through. We do it every year. And we don't define customers as just the people coming through the door and buying the food. It's the vendors are our customers. We are I give, my coworkers and I give each other customer service. I give customer service myself when I like maintain a healthy work-life balance. Like, there are all these things. And so it's really holistic, but takes a lot of effort. And it didn't just happen on its own, for sure.
Well, I just thank you for this because I wish we had met you about 8 years ago.
yeah.
And I'm excited for Shared Harvest because, I know if you've been to some of these meetings we go to, and it is so common. I mean, the common thread right now is, oh my gosh, it's not working. What's happening?
Well, and I made the point to somebody from, I don't know if he was from Unfee or NCG, that we were just kind of checking in with them. And I said, when we started this, we had a location right away that Katie helped us raise funds for. We had a location which was an old Ace Hardware store. It was going to be a little funky. As I said, at those times, the NCG Unified people wouldn't even talk to us. So we were just going to like try to build it, paint. We had people that are volunteering to paint and do it. And then we lost the location. And that was going to be 1.3 million because they were having us do like, coolers that you could put things in from the back and kind of stuff like that. And so there was 1.3 million, how many, 10 years ago. It was like about.
That was a long time ago.
Yeah. But you know what? Our sales promotion, our sales forecast did not go up 100%, but the cost of building it has gone up 3 times. So where's the business model there? And the guy looked at me, couldn't answer me. I said, I did the first performer for our thing, and I'm going to do the last performer for our thing. And when I just found a little location in Elgin that, I'm sorry, we lost it, went so fast, but it would have been the 350, 400,000 to basically tear down a few offices, plug in some refrigerators, had a great parking lot. And it was right off the highway. And I said, we could be up and going in 4 months. But people were like, this is where we have the problem with the board. The board's like, wait a minute, we've been talking about this, the co-op, the whole grocery store all this time. But I do
to change direction.
Exactly. A good business person sees the opportunity, and we still want to support the farmer. We still want to bring, and that's our original mission, was support local and sustainable farming, to bring good food to our people and to, support economic vitality of Elgin. Still our same mission all these years.
Yeah. Well, and
so it's possible.
It is. And I'm so grateful to you, Casey, and I appreciate you staying over 7 minutes. I could talk to you all night long.
I know.
I could. So, Casey, you feel free to drop whenever you need to, but many thanks to you. This is quite inspiring. I think this is a viable model that can really, this might be a stepping stone for us. Maybe we can do this
in
for
the middle.
5-10 years, and then we do something else.
Yeah, and I'll just throw it out there. Something I'm waiting for someone to do that I haven't seen anybody do yet is this farm stop model can be part of a larger or a different organization. You can open a grocery co-op and just your produce department is a farm stop
Yeah.
on a consignment model, for example. It doesn't
Yeah.
have to be like a, its whole thing. I'm waiting for somebody to do that. No one has yet. So
Yeah,
if it's you,
I
you're on
think
your
that's great.
you're in uncharted water, but I think there's an opportunity there. And I think about co-ops because yeah, I know you're all at a transition point, and there are a lot of co-ops that exist now and have these beautiful stores and these larger footprints, and they need to do something differently to differentiate themselves from the other stores.
Mhm.
When we first, like,
Yeah.
I don't know, 4 years ago, we started like really leaning into, like, we did our first conference and we were like trying to like spread the word and like get more people to do this. We reached out to a number of co-op organizations around the country to try to like be like, hey, what if you tried this inside of a co-op? And most of the people said, like, yeah, no way, like consignment, like just that's too complicated or what have you. And then we had a few people that were interested. I'm glad like Chris Dilly kept in touch with us. And that's what has led now to this in the last year. But I definitely think there's opportunity there.
I think it's awesome you went to up and coming.
Thanks.
I
Yeah.
mean, it's like, oh my goodness, because everybody's really hungry for that. And most of us wanted exactly this to start, this is what we really wanted all along. And then it just kind of morphs into, the co-op model, and there's nothing wrong with that. But maybe it's past its time, right? In the 70s, we couldn't buy all the stuff that we want at just any grocery store. So in the past 13 years, while we built the co-op and put all our heart and soul into it, things were changing,
Times have changed,
People
right?
figured out where to get all that stuff.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so
Joe,
I
did you have a question?
Yeah, one of the things I was just going to say is thanks to Scott and Kim and everybody for, talking about their struggles, because it helps when, we're still developing, that's for sure. And I would like to actually be a part. I took the session down at Up and Coming, and I thought it was great. And I immediately rerouted my GPS to your store on the way home. To both
Great.
of them. But yeah, I'm very interested in being able to take from this and morph our model for sure. We are a little bit stuck, and I'd love to be able to present this to our entire board to show them that there are these other options that aren't as wild as they really thought. I mean, it's pretty out there, but from what we're organizing for at this point. But once you hear it and how it's been successful, it doesn't sound so wild anymore. And I think it's something that we could definitely utilize. If you might be able to include us when you discuss this more, and possibly with Martin and others, I'd love to be in on this.
Okay. Yeah, great.
I think owners and bankers and everybody else would be very interested in this model because it's just a fraction of the cost.
Yeah.
Right. And the proven model and good sales projections, all that good stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's why
you can see
we're gonna have a session at our conference on specifically on how to fund a farm stop, and we're gonna have some people talking about different ways. And we've seen interest from like community foundations, and they're definitely, like I said, they're attractive to USDA grants because there is impact, and it's a fairly low barrier to entry with a huge impact. So
Yeah.
Is there
absolutely.
one co-op that has made the transition from to your model that you know of?
Kennett Square is the one that's active. All the other farm stops that are currently co-ops started as co-ops. Like they started.
Oh,
It wasn't. That's how they
So
started.
local Roots is one of the co-ops.
Mhm.
Farm stops, are there others that are
Yeah, so
co-ops?
Local Roots in Worcester, Ohio, Bloomington Farm Stop Collective in Bloomington,
One is too.
Indiana.
Okay.
There's a very small one in Des Moines. I think it's called Iowa Food Co-op or Iowa Food. Yeah, I think Iowa Food Co-op is what it's called. They are, I mean, they're on consignment, they're a farm stop, but most of their business is through subscription boxes and through delivery boxes, but they do have a brick and mortar retail space as well. I think that's it. I think those are the three that are operating right now as co-ops. I think that's true.
Maybe more soon.
Yeah, right.
I kind of have a feeling.
Yeah.
But I do appreciate you, Casey. I appreciate you all being here today. We're going to send the slides out, so you'll have reference to the slides. I'll send them tomorrow when I send the recording. For those of us that are thinking about transitioning to this model, perhaps a good first step would be to send these slides and the recording to your board and ask them to watch. I don't think that would be a bad idea. And then, as Casey mentioned, they do consulting work. They have their conference and their webinar coming up. So I think those would be good next steps for those of us considering this model too. I would love to come to the conference. I just can't figure out how to make it happen yet, but I'm working on it.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that.
Ann Arbor's a beautiful place.
Thanks.
We-
Even
we
in February,
have-
I promise.
We have some really good friends that live there, so that's why we've been to your store.
Thanks. Yeah, and Katie, when you send out the slides, feel free to share my email too. People can
Okay.
reach out to me. I'm
Great.
totally
Okay.
to
Can I
chat.
ask how the conference is set up? Is it a 3-day?
It's so it starts, the conference events start on Thursday, February 12th. And it's kind of an opening reception in that, like, we're giving guided tours of Argus during the day. That evening, there's an opening reception. The conference itself is 2 days. So the conference itself is Friday and Saturday, this February 13th and 14th.
Okay.
Valentine's Day.
I know. It's the only time we can get our venue, but yeah.
So awesome. Well, thank you all. I hope you have a good rest of your evening. And
Thanks, Katie.
I look forward to many bright things in the future here.
Yes.
All right. Thanks, Katie.
Take care.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.